Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Wynna Wong. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. COVID cases in Hong Kong dropped to the lowest in 1 month. The government is set to roll out anti-epidemic kits for all households. And NATO leaders meet to discuss more sanctions against Russia. COVID cases in Hong Kong have dropped to a 1-month low. The number of daily fatalities fell to its lowest level in 3 weeks, but the death rate inched up. Johanna Chan reports.
Hong Kong's daily COVID caseload dipped to 10,405 today, the lowest in exactly a month. Of the total, 5,827 infections were found through rapid antigen tests, and the rest through PCR. There were another 162 deaths, plus a backlog of 30. The tally since the fifth wave began has passed 6,700, pushing the death rate to 0.61%. Over half of the deaths reported today were people who lived in care homes, and most were over 65 years old. The authorities, meanwhile, explained why they quarantined 170 people who tested positive after a self-administered test and were later found to be negative through a PCR test.
For these cases, we will carry out investigations, including collecting more information from them, including their symptoms, the reason for the RAT test, and also the contact history with other known cases, and the brand of the rapid antigen test used. And also, we will arrange them to be isolated in isolation facilities, mainly the penny space, and we will arrange a second PCR test for them. If the second PCR test is tested negative, then if we consider them as false positive case, then they are not true cases, so we will terminate their isolation order and they can be resume normal life.
The hospital authority announced that infected people who recovered without going to hospital can receive 10 free consultations for half a year at Chinese medicine clinics if they provide proof that they had COVID. Johanna Chan, HKIBC.
Outreach teams from the Social Welfare Department will offer BioNTech shots to elderly people in care homes. Elderly Services Association Chairman Kenneth Chan said care home residents mainly opt for Sinovac. He said the supply of Sinovac was higher as the process to refrigerate and dilute BioNTech vaccines is sophisticated. Chan added that increasing the BioNTech supply for care homes will help raise the vaccination rate among the residents from around 55% currently to 90% by the end of next month. The chief executive has hit out at claims that insufficient measures led to a high death rate from COVID among the elderly. Carrie Lam also said anti-epidemic kits will be distributed to every household next month. Joanna Ho reports.
Chief Executive Carrie Lam announced at her daily press briefing that anti-COVID packs will be delivered to every home at the beginning of next month. Each package will contain 20 rapid antigen test kits, 20 KN95 masks, some Chinese COVID medicine, an information booklet, and a greeting card from the government. Acting Home Affairs Secretary Jack Chan said more than 10,000 volunteers and civil servants will start preparing the kits next Wednesday. The Housing Department will distribute the parcels in public housing estates, while owners' corporations and property management companies will deliver the packages to private homes. On a separate note, Lam denied that the government is to blame for the high death rate among elderly COVID patients. She said senior citizens were accorded priority in the fight against the virus. Lam blamed the media for the low vaccination rate among the elderly.
I was very aggrieved and actually very angry when, as recently as a few days ago, a local newspaper was still presenting headlines which were misleading, which will immediately give the old people, their relatives, and the whole community the wrong message of getting Sinovac. as to be vaccinated.
Lam added that the government will consider making BioNTech available to more elderly people in a bid to raise their vaccination rate. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
Locally transmitted COVID cases are on a downward trend on the mainland, but asymptomatic cases, which are not listed as confirmed infections, keep breaking records. There were 1,300 new local cases yesterday, 700 fewer than on Wednesday. Most were in Jilin province, the mainland's current virus epicenter. But symptomless cases rose to a record high of 3,500, with nearly half in Shanghai, which is battling its worst outbreak in 2 years. Also in Shanghai, the death of a nurse from an asthma attack triggered an outcry on social media. She was rushed to hospital, but the emergency unit was closed for disinfection to prevent COVID. There was a false alarm this morning in the search for the second black box from a passenger plane that crashed in Guangxi earlier this week. A newspaper apologized after saying the flight data recorder had been found. Chloe Feng reports.
It was a roller coaster morning for those monitoring the search for clues to determine what caused a China Eastern Airlines plane to crash in Guangxi province on Monday. A newspaper run by the Civil Aviation Administration of China swiftly removed a report that the second black box had been found after the Xinhua news agency denied it. The newspaper confirmed the mistake and apologized. Search teams did find an orange object, suggesting that the flight data recorder might be nearby. More human remains were found today, 4 days after flight MU5735, with 132 people on board, plunged into a mountain during a flight from Kunming to Guangzhou. Authorities said they also found 18 sets of fingerprints and 108 objects that can help identify victims through DNA tests. The engine gearbox and parts of the landing gear of the Boeing 737-800 were also recovered. Most of the wreckage was found within a 30-meter radius of a crater which formed by the impact of the crash. Mao Yanfeng, who heads the investigation, said a preliminary report on the cockpit voice recorder, which was found on Wednesday, will be sent to the International Civil Aviation Organization within a month. Nearly 400 grieving relatives visited the crash site today to pay tribute. Some took away mud in memory of their loved ones. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
Overseas, U.S. President Joe Biden is seeking the expulsion of Moscow from the influential G20 bloc. This came as he met Nato leaders to discuss more sanctions against Russia for invading Ukraine. Residents in Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv, continue to suffer as the Russian offensive entered its second month. In this neighborhood, civilians recalled the moment their houses collapsed from shelling. All of a sudden, the ceiling started to fall on me, said 76-year-old Viktor Nikitiev. I came out and everything was destroyed. Half of the city's population have left, most of them young people. Those who chose to stay survive on supplies from relief organizations. Large plumes of black smoke rose on the outskirts of the capital, Kyiv, as the Russians resorted to shelling from afar. Marking 30 days since Russia invaded, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky appeared serene when he addressed his compatriots. I am grateful to each and every one of you for a month of great struggle, he said. If Russia had known what was waiting for them here, I'm sure they wouldn't have come. In Brussels, NATO leaders met to discuss their next step with U.S. President Joe Biden, determined to expel Moscow from a major international group.
Do you think that Russia needs to be removed from the G20?
My answer is yes. That depends on the G20. That was raised today, and I raised the possibility if that can't be done, if Indonesia and others do not agree, then we should, in my view, ask to have both Ukraine be able to attend the meetings, as well as basically Ukraine being able to attend the G20 meeting and observe.
Biden's next stop is Poland.
Japan and South Korea have joined the United States to denounce North Korea for launching a new ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile. Pyongyang released footage of the launch, which was overseen by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. It was the first full ICBM test by the North in 5 years. According to flight data, the missile fired yesterday flew higher and longer than any previous North Korean test before falling into the sea west of Japan. Kim said the test was aimed at displaying Pyongyang's nuclear muscles and to deter any U.S. move against his country. More local news. Carrie Lam says the chief executive election will not be delayed again. But she sidestepped questions on whether she will seek a second term.
I have no answer for you except to reiterate, and according to the laws of Hong Kong, the nomination period for the next term chief executive election will still be the 3rd of April.
The poll was originally scheduled for Sunday, but the government decided last month to postpone it to May 8th to focus on the fight against COVID. Commenting on rumors that Chief Secretary John Lee and Financial Secretary Paul Chan will step down to join the race, Lam said she hasn't received any resignation letter. She added that China will have to be informed if any senior official resigns. Police have arrested another 7 people in connection with a kidnapping in Kowloon Bay last year. The suspects in their mid-20s were caught on the mainland and sent back to Hong Kong. They and others are accused of kidnapping a 39-year-old man last November. The victim had been duped into meeting a self-proclaimed cryptocurrency buyer. However, he was taken to an industrial building and beaten up. A $30 million ransom was demanded, but he managed to escape a week later. Police have so far arrested 13 people, some of whom have already been charged. The Hang Seng Index lost 2.5% today as the market waited for fresh incentives. Food delivery giant Meituan plunged 8.2%. After the market closed, the mainland firm said fourth quarter revenue rose 31% from a year earlier to 50 billion yuan. But its quarterly loss more than doubled to 5.3 billion yuan. A look at the markets now. The Hang Seng Index closed down 541 points. Top 10 active stocks, Tencent was down $9.60, Alibaba down $6.40. Tracker Fund down 56 cents, AIA down $2.60. In foreign exchange rates, it's 8.61 to the euro and 10.33 to the pound sterling. In foreign markets, the UK FTSE is up 25 points. Onto the weather now, mainly cloudy with occasional showers and isolated thunderstorms tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 23 and 27 degrees. The mercury is set to drop again throughout Sunday and Monday. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. And that's our main news for Friday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Wynna Wong. Good night.